Welcome to your Morning Minute here on Cowboys Wire. On Tuesday, the Cowboys signed their right tackle La'el Collins to a 2-year extension, putting him basically under their control until the 2019 season. On Twitter, one of my followers brought up the fact that I was kind of celebrating the move for Collins, while a couple of years ago I was vehemently against the extension that they gave to Tyrone Crawford. These two situations are really nothing like each other. Yes, both players were kind of unproven, had an injury history, and they gave each player a contract extension to avoid having to deal with higher costs down the line, but that's pretty much where the similarities end. When the Cowboys gave Crawford an extension in 2015 before the start of the regular season, they gave him a 5-year extension that averaged over $9 million a year. For an unproven guy who the entire offseason I was advocating giving a $4.5 or $5 million a year contract to do the similar thing as to avoid paying him more money down the line, that was really out of whack for me. I was even told that when my contract proposal was given to the Cowboys front office, they laughed it off, saying there was no way that they were going to be able to sign Crawford for that amount. A few years later, and the money that I advocated for them to give Crawford seems like the exact right fit for the type of production that he's given. He is no longer the 3 technique. He's been kicked back out to left defensive end. We'll see if he remains a starter there as the rest of these defensive ends start to develop. But overall, I just think it was a very bad move for the Cowboys at that time. They had hopes, but they didn't have any production to go for it. He had 3 career sacks over 3 seasons before they gave him that deal, and then they locked him in for an additional 5 years. With Collins, they've only locked him in for an additional 2 years, and basically, if you look at it, they locked him in for the deal that they would have if they drafted him in the first round, where he was scheduled to go before all the incidents with the investigation by the police knocked him entirely out of the draft. The money that they gave him is basically similar to what he would have gotten with a 4-year deal at that slot in the late part of the first round, plus a 5th-year extension that the Cowboys give to everybody that's worth it. You've seen it with Teron Smith, with Travis Frederick, with Zach Martin. Pretty much everybody except for Morris Claiborne recently has gotten that kind of 5th-year option clause built into their deal. So when you're looking at what Collins has done, I have a feeling that he is going to be much more productive at right tackle than he was at left guard, where he showed flashes of brilliance. We all see the highlight plays where he's mowing down people, getting down the field in the 2nd and 3rd level, but he also had a lot of bad plays. We'll be honest, he struggled last year in the first 2 games of the season before he was knocked out with the injury against Chicago. So that is some cause for concern. But we all know the site that I wrote for at the time that they signed Collins after the draft, the site that I wrote for even suggested that they told Collins that he was going to eventually take over at right tackle for Doug Free and was probably going to play left guard temporarily. I also believe that they gave him a promise that as long as he showed some sort of potential, they were going to lock him in and pay him as a first rounder, and that's what got him to come to the Cowboys as opposed to choosing another team when Jerry Jones was doing his tour and making sure that everybody knew, everybody on the Collins side, on the Collins camp knew how much the Cowboys coveted him. Remember, they trotted out all the rest of the offensive linemen. They had him come to the dinner that he hosted Collins and his mother at Jerry Jones' house, and all the rest of the linemen except for Ron Larry and Doug Free, the 2 guys whose job he basically took. Everybody was there to welcome him to the team and show him how much camaraderie there was with the new Great Wall of Dallas. So all in all, this was in the plan for the Cowboys to begin with. They are basically just fulfilling their promise, and it doesn't make that big of a dent of the salary cap because he's really only getting paid around $5 million a year. If he plays over 85% of the snaps in the next 2 years, he gets a bump in 2019. But again, that's the Cowboys protecting themselves. If he does remain an injured player, he won't get that bump, and he's basically getting paid an average salary of what Doug Free was making towards the end of his career. So the Cowboys could potentially have a great right tackle. He'll learn the position in the pros this season and then probably be all-world in the coming seasons, and they'll actually have a cheap price for him at that point. If not, they're paying an average price for a right tackle who will be facing some of the game's best pass rushers in this coming season. He's going to have to face Von Miller and Jason Pierre-Paul and a slew of other guys that rush great from the left side, from the defensive left side, because that's kind of the mode that things are going in as teams try to get away from the left tackles such as Teron Smith. So we'll see what happens with this, but for me, I'm loving it. It's nothing like it was when it was Tyrone Crawford getting the deal. I love this deal for La'el Collins and for the Cowboys. That's it. This is your Morning Minute. I'm KD Drummond. Salute.